Since its formation, the Marvel Universe has been hailed as the world outside your window, a place that weaves larger-than-life adventures into a tapestry that reflects our own reality from decade to decade. But what happens when the murky realities of the present creep into these colorful fantasies? How do the hidden evils of this world mark the people living in it? And what new identities must they build to survive it? In the hands of Brian Michael Bendis and Michael Gaydos, we're about to find out. In 2001, Marvel Comics launched its Max imprint, attempting to build on the success of its Marvel Knights line and its recent break from the Comics Code Authority by focusing on more mature, standalone stories, all to be told in explicit, uncensored glory. Spearheading this new imprint would be Bendis and Gaydos' Alias, a neo-noir series that followed Jessica Jones, a one-time superhero-turned-detective, as she navigates the many forgotten corners and dark underpinnings of the modern Marvel Universe. And while it wasn't the first comic to give a gritty and grounded take on the world of superheroes, Alias would prove instrumental for Bendis and his work at Marvel across the 2000s, with the writer and his collaborators giving a more tangible, human quality to a world of impossible, aspirational figures. The result is a story that would redefine the Marvel Universe as we know it, setting these brighter costumed adventures and their seedier, darker counterparts against one woman's journey to make sense of the world, its past, and her place within it. This is the story of Brian Michael Bendis and Michael Gaydos' Alias, and how it helped reinvent the Marvel Universe. Let me just say something really quick. Alias isn't the first noir-themed superhero story. It's not the first R-rated comic. It's not even Bendis' first R-rated comic. But it was a first for Marvel, and thanks to the writer's pioneering style, it changed everything. Like I said previously, a major part of Marvel's appeal is that, unlike the fictional cities of DC Comics, their stories take place in mostly real cities, with a few fantastical flourishes. I promise you, Westchester in real life is not nearly as exciting as you think it is. This semi-real lens can also help acclimate readers to the time period of the stories they're reading, with major background elements of the setting changing to reflect the technology and culture of our world. And here's where we get to the state of Marvel in the 2000s. After an explosive expansion and failed relaunch that coincided with the comics speculator boom of the 1990s, the Marvel Entertainment Group declared bankruptcy in 1997, with then-publisher Bill Jemas and editor-in-chief Bob Harris fighting to stabilize the company by broadening its line and appealing to new audiences. These efforts began in 1998 with the launch of the Marvel Knights imprint under Joe Quesada, a sort of line within a line focused on standalone stories with a tougher, grittier tone. And this darker, more sophisticated approach would draw a number of rising indie creators over to Marvel, from David Mack to Garth Ennis to one of the stars of this video, Brian Michael Bendis. Rising to prominence through his work on crime comics like Jinx and AKA Goldfish, Bendis made a name for himself at Marvel by bringing a more realistic lens to many of the publisher's superheroes, spearheading the Ultimate line through his work on Spider-Man and becoming the main writer for Daredevil in 2001. This would lead to something entirely new for both Bendis and Marvel, an adult comics line that, while still taking place in Marvel canon, was totally uncensored and outside the guidelines of the old Comics Code Authority, giving creators the freedom to say whatever the hell they want.
Cheers.
Yeah, I guess.
Awesome.
Now, Alias wasn't the first comic to abandon the CCA, but under Bendis and artist Michael Gaydos, it definitely feels like a comic worthy of its label, with the writer's indie crime sensibilities working to reshape the past and present of the Marvel Universe. While its explicit ties to Marvel's continuity are never really the focus, the series pulls in a number of references and themes from its contemporary Marvel books, often mirroring them with the real-life events of 2000s America. The anti-mutant hysteria and appropriation from Grant Morrison's New X-Men pops up a number of times throughout the book, drawing a number of parallels to America's obsession with the Middle East at the height of its global war on terror. J. Jonah Jameson's Private War with Spider-Man reaches Fox News-esque levels of spite, using sensationalized gossip to combat the rise of 24-hour news channels. Several forgotten characters are reintroduced through more grounded, true-to-life personas, and, surprise surprise, everybody's favorite sad boy superhero Matt Murdock is a constant presence in the book, helping further Bendis' commitment to this darker take on Marvel's superheroes while keeping it firmly out of costume. And of course, there's the fact that everything is explicit and uncensored, with the comic's first issue, page, and panel kicking off with a big ol' F-bomb, and a bunch more after that. At the time, it was a huge paradigm shift for the publisher, one that was largely saved by its need for big experiments to draw in new readers. Looking back, Bendis would reflect,
I could have done Alias as a creator-owned book. I could have done it at Image or somewhere like that, but she belonged in the Marvel universe. I literally said to Marvel that it seemed that the magic, the true next level stuff, is that this happened in the Marvel universe when no one was looking. You could only do that in a shared universe that has been built up. I think because of the timing of our move-in, because Marvel was just coming out of bankruptcy, they were much more open to the idea of people with voices putting their foot down and doing something legitimately expressive, and it paid off for them, which is great news. Bill Jemas ended up reading an 11-page one-act play that I wrote as the first half of issue 1, and literally put the Max line into gear the next day. His words were, "Why can't we publish this? We should be able to publish this." There's a lot of things Bill will be remembered for in comics, and I hope that this is one of them.
Naturally, the book's art team is a perfect complement to this tone. The majority of the series is illustrated by Michael Gaydos, using a sketchy, angular style with heavy noir inks alongside Matt Hollingsworth's muted, almost sepia-tinged colors. Barely anybody here fits the idyllic, plasticky beauty of traditional superheroes, and whenever someone like that does show up, they're either depicted as untrustworthy or weird and anachronistic, as if they don't belong in this world. This style is bolstered by a number of guest artists, who help stretch the style of the book while feeding back into its core themes. Bill Sienkiewicz's impressionistic cutaways are used alongside Rick Jones's tell-all book, calling back to a kind of abstract, hazy memory of Marvel's heroes in their golden age. David Mack, an old friend of Bendis's, lends his mixed media approach to Rebecca Cross's collage books, giving us insight into a character trying to piece her identity together from the icons she sees on the news. And Ultimate Spider-Man's Mark Bagley lends his art to Jessica's memories as the former hero Jewel, with his smoother cartooning painting the picture of a shinier yesterday on the verge of collapse. Each of these styles are perfectly suited to their respective arcs or moments, but where Gaydos really shines is his ability to add drama and importance to the book's dialogue-heavy work, making everyday conversations and by-the-book reporting feel enormous and exciting. Honestly, you can't talk about Bendis without mentioning his love of dialogue, usually depicted in long, naturalistic exchanges between characters that work in as many tangents, mannerisms, and phonetic gags as possible. In the wrong hands, it can come off as overindulgence, but thanks to the book's pacing, its shifts between conversations and wordless action, and lettering work by Richard Starkings, Wes Abbott, Oscar Gongora, and Jason Levine, Alias's dialogue practically becomes its action. Gaydos' layouts are pretty quick to highlight Jessica's powers as a detective, using mosaics of cutaways to show how she reads the people around her, charting verbal sparring matches across two-page spreads, or even slicing a splash page into panels as she agonizes over different situations through her internal monologue. The result is a full-on collision between the brighter, spandex-clad world of Marvel's heroes and the drab, dark messiness of our own reality. Is it as operatic as Bendis' work on Daredevil or Ultimate Spider-Man? No, but also it isn't trying to be. At its core, Alias is the story of the many everyday people trying to live their lives in between all the battles, invasions, and cosmic events. People trying to balance their own personal traumas and tragedies with the shining examples they're supposed to live up to. And at the center of it all is Jessica Jones, a character with roots in both of these worlds, struggling to build a new identity that outshines the darkness around her. Throughout the history of the genre, the origin story has played a crucial part in superhero fiction, using moments of trauma, destiny, or random chance to elevate everyday people into icons we can all aspire to. When you look at these stories through the lens of classic comics, they can easily be read as metaphors. There's a clear good guy, there's a clear bad guy, and after every adventure, everything relatively returns to normal. Of course, all that starts to change when these tales are presented through more realistic terms. Every action has consequences, consequences. Every battle impacts and is impacted by the society that surrounds it, and the psychologies of certain characters are never so cut and dry. When you look at Bendis' work on Daredevil through the 90s and 2000s, it's no surprise to see a similar approach to the genre in Alias, with Jessica's role as a private investigator bringing her into contact with all manner of everyday people processing the heightened goings-on of the Marvel Universe in realistic, even relatable ways. Well, the comic's 28 issues have a kind of loose timeline, built around defining Jessica as a character. Each arc is fairly episodic, built around self-contained mysteries that highlight even more realistic instances of trauma, destiny, and chance. Alias Investigations, which spans the first 5 issues, sees Jessica roped into a conspiracy to blackmail Captain America and the President of the United States, pitting her against a larger societal machine. B-Level tasks her with finding the recently missing Rick Jones, a once popular sidekick who's fallen into obscurity but still thinks he's being targeted by aliens. Come Home, from issues 11 through 15, sees the disappearance of a girl rumored to be a mutant slowly tear apart the small, prejudiced town she's run away from. The Underneath, which starts in issue 10 and resumes in issues 16 through 21, follows Jessica as she tracks down the missing Spider-Woman Maddie Franklin and has several encounters with J. Jonah Jameson. First as the embittered newspaperman with an agenda, then as a worried foster father with everything to lose. Without getting too deep into spoilers, many of these arcs work to directly subvert the classic underpinnings of superheroes, with broader battles of good and evil quickly giving way to murky, noir-esque outcomes. New developments can make characters more sympathetic or more villainous. What little action's depicted is brief, brutal, and messy, and nearly every finale leaves Jessica to stew in the knowledge of what's come to pass instead of any real catharsis. Across these episodes, Bendis and his collaborators also take the time to flesh out Jessica's tragic past and how these many events have shaped her into who she is now. In The Secret Origins of Jessica Jones, Gaydos and Stewart's style shifts into something softer and brighter, akin to the work of Steve Ditko, transplanting Jessica's high school years into the background of early Spider-Man stories. But this too is quickly subverted. The catalyst for Jessica's own superpowers, a mysterious container that literally falls into her lap, arrives with the sudden, tragic death of her entire family and knocks her into a 6-month coma that alienates her from the people around her. Do you know how much of an outcast you have to be for Peter Parker to feel sorry for you? That's rough. Naturally, this interplay between reality and fantasy only grows across the series, with Jessica's jaded outlook clashing with the superheroic image of characters like her friend Carol Danvers or romantic partners Scott Lang and Luke Cage. It can be pretty jarring to see these icons presented in shades of gray instead of the clear-cut terms of older stories, and given how some of these messy exchanges read, it can even be uncomfortable. But I'd also argue that messy ambiguity is the point here. The stories in Alias aren't just dark and edgy for dark and edgy's sake. They're both retconning and critiquing how superhero comics have historically simplified everything around these battles of good and evil. And if that sounds familiar, it's because it's almost exactly the same approach Bendis used when he was penning Daredevil. The guy's nothing if not consistent. Most interestingly though, while Bendis' Daredevil used this upheaval to chart Matt Murdock's downward spiral, Alias's gritty, grounded storytelling ends up highlighting its hero's resilience. Despite the many tragedies in her life and the self-destructive behaviors she uses to insulate herself, something heroic endures in Jessica. Namely, her ability to see herself in other people, to overcome her pain and connect with them, even as she's continually let down by the world around her.
I believe you should make your work a reflection of the world you live in. That doesn't mean lecturing people about the state of the world. It means bringing the characters and humor and humanity that you see in your world into your work, even if it's superheroes. In fact, especially if it's superheroes,
states Bendis.
As a man writing the character, there's always the worry that you're off the mark, but I created Jessica because I'm completely surrounded by women who have persevered over something. Watching someone survive and turn the page is, I think, one of the most heroic things I've ever seen. Someone getting it together and figuring out that it's not their fault. Those are heroic moments and they're not shown a lot, particularly in our genre. Give people something honest and true, and they will respond in kind. It speaks to a subject matter that a lot of people take very seriously. We get a lot of mail about it. In this instance, particularly when you have a message as strong as Jessica's, and there are certain people so eager to hear it, we feel what a relief it is on every level.
Past and present, reality and fantasy, empathy and cruelty. All of these separate ideas collide in the book's final arc, Purple, giving readers the last piece of Jessica's origins and allowing her to confront the root of her trauma, her brainwashing and torment at the hands of the Purple Man, which nearly got her killed in a battle with the Avengers. If you haven't guessed it by now, reworking Silver Age throwbacks is a bit of a hobby for Bendis. And though he debuted in the pages of Daredevil as a gag villain, Bendis' Purple Man is a towering, monstrous presence, constantly toying with Jessica's sense of reality even when he's locked up and totally powerless. And this all-consuming fear only crystallizes with his escape, as the villain quickly dismantles Jessica's allies and threatens to walk her through the trauma of her past all over again. It's another shocking, visceral take on these stories, with Bendis drawing from real-world cases of manipulation and addiction to heighten the brutality of his villain. But instead of more deconstruction, the realism of Bendis' finale finally gives way to something empowering and heroic, with Jessica's many relationships giving her the strength to take back her life. The empathy for the Purple Man's other victims and a heart-to-heart with Luke Cage helps her overcome her fears of him. Opening up to Jean Grey of the X-Men gives Jessica the key to breaking his control, and ultimately, the love she has for herself finally lets her close that chapter of her life to build something new. Of course, given the episodic nature of the comic, this last arc can feel a bit abrupt, with a few plot threads coming off as a bit rushed. Scott Lang just sort of walks out of the story. But even still, it's hard not to see the power in this finale, and Alias as a whole. Watching a character change and grow in ways regular superheroes never could, and confront these problems with a resilience that we all share if we dig deep enough. While issue 28 marked the end of Alias, Jessica Jones' impact as a character continued to echo across the Marvel Universe. Both a hero and her then-fiancé Luke Cage would reappear in Bendis' follow-up series The Pulse, as well as his stint on New Avengers and Alan Heinberg's Young Avengers, each entry continuing the journeys of both characters as they evolved as heroes, people, and eventually parents. And of course, Kristen Ritter's portrayal of the character in Jessica Jones and the Defenders gave Alias another resurgence, even allowing Bendis and Gaydos to reunite and continue the series, albeit with a different title. But despite the character's steady presence in comics, it seems like a lot of the intent behind Alias and the line it helped to inspire has been lost. After several years working at both Marvel and DC, Bendis seems to have stepped away from superhero comics, returning to crime fiction through his creator-owned Jinx World imprint. And while Marvel has brought the Max label back a few times in recent years, its newer attempts at adult comics seem less and less experimental, opting for more in-your-face grittiness or blood and guts through special red band editions of stories. The thing is, the grittiness of the story wasn't what made Alias so successful in its day. Rather, it was the dedication to the raw humanity behind these characters that made these stories, and this whole era of Marvel, feel so engaging and impactful. Will we ever get back to that? Who's to say? But until that shakeup comes, if it ever comes, I'm happy to continue celebrating Alias and an era of comics where anything seemed possible. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out today's video and joining me for another year of Noirvember. I've been a massive fan of Brian Michael Bendis since I started reading comics, from his Avengers work, to Daredevil, to Spider-Man, to a million other things, and with so much talk about what can or can't be shown in stories lately, I thought it would be great to dig into one of the comics that really showed readers what an adult story could do if it was made with care. Do you have a favorite comic from the Marvel Max or Marvel Knights imprints? If so, I'd love to hear about it all in the comments. If you like this video, please feel free to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Every little bit helps the channel out a lot. I'd also like to give a special thanks to Carol Ann Brenneman, The Comics Cave, and my patrons, who are helping me to grow this channel and continue doing what I love, and hopefully what you love too. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and have another happy Noirvember.